Welcome to Slayerfest 98. I'm Ian Carlos Crawford.
And I'm Anthony Oliveira, and today we have the extreme pleasure of being joined by the series writer, showrunner, and developers for the X-Men animated series,
Eric Lewald.
Julia Lewald.
Yay!
And if that weren't enough, the voice of Rogue and member of Canadian Parliament.
Well, howdy, sugar. It's Lenore Zann here, aka Rogue the Extreme.
Oh my gosh. This is the joy of a lifetime. I can't believe I was tweeting earlier today, like, this show really was like the architecture of my childhood, and it's such a pleasure to be chatting with you all. This is such a joy.
It's like our
bedroom.
Yes,
in the bedroom. Yeah.
It's all our gay boy dreams coming true.
I always love purple walls.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a really gay room. It is.
I love it.
And to let all of our listeners know, normally we record over just audio, but today we're doing something special, and it's over Zoom, so we can all see each other.
I have already talked about Lenore's hair, which is gorgeous. I'm obsessed with it.
Thank you. And I did it myself.
We all have, like, I love that my quarantine haircut is this
COVID.
like rough thing, and yours is this gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's my COVID hair, and I did it all by myself. Yeah, not bad, eh?
It's beautiful. It really is.
Thank you.
So I guess we should start by asking about how this project came to be. Like, how did this land in your laps? Did the network come to you, or?
Go back in time.
Go back in time.
Go way back in time.
X-Men comics in the 60s. For 30 years, they couldn't get them on TV.
Yeah.
For some reason, Hollywood didn't get it. But there were one voice in the wilderness, a great lady named Margaret Lesh, who worked at Marvel Productions, believed X-Men would be a great show.
Couldn't give it away.
And she finally, in 1990, was made head of Fox Kids TV. And so
Which was a network at the time, which was trying to
starting out.
That was on TV, kids.
Yeah.
That's when you watch shows.
Broadcast television. Yeah. Nothing online. There was no online. And so she decided, the show that she wanted to get on the air, she had a number of them, but the number one was X-Men. And she took her about a year and a half to get it sold to her people who didn't believe in it either. And when she got the green light to do it, it was early, January 1992. She and her right-hand man, Sidney Iwander, looked around and said, well, who are going to get to produce this? And they had a place called Graz Entertainment that had hired two Marvel artists, Will Mineo and Larry Houston. And so we're going with them to do the actual art and production of it. Okay, but who are going to go to write it? And the year before, I'd done a season I'd been the showrunner for a season on Beetlejuice show for Fox Kids.
Love that.
The last season they had. I did start it out, some really cool people set that show up, ran it for 3 years. They were tired of it. I got a year of it. And that was such a good experience for me and for Margaret and Sidney that I guess Sidney just said, well, Eric has the tone in his head for me, for X-Men. He's the right tool for the job. So he and Mark Edens, who's like a main writer with me, guy I've known since college, they said, have those guys come on and be in charge of the scripts. So I was hired on literally the Sunday night before a Monday meeting with family and Heinz Kaban and 30 other people from Marvel and all over from Fox saying, okay, great, we're going to pin our future hopes on you for this big show. And I had to sit there and not say, well, I don't know what the X-Men are.
You weren't a fan. You didn't know.
Not a fan. I'd read other comics when I was growing up, but I couldn't name two X-Men.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
And most folks back then in 1992 couldn't have done that either.
I guess that's true.
So you think about that, it's so ubiquitous. Back then, no one knew who the X-Men were beyond the comic fans.
Margaret told us 85% of our audience for TV wouldn't know the X-Men, so we'd have to be very careful in introducing them. But I learned very fast. All the art people knew them by heart. All the art people, X-Men pajamas. They really were true believers. So they made sure, and Marvel was on board, so they made sure we stayed true to canon and true to the spirit of the show. But the head writing staff, it was really new to us. We just wanted to tell like the best heroic stories we could tell, but we didn't have any agenda. We didn't have favorite characters. We didn't have favorite issues. We just looked at this group of 8 people like Rogue and thought, well, what's the coolest Rogue story we could tell? Well, one she maybe thinks she might give up her mutancy because she's so lonely. And so we started building a story around that. And then we pull stuff out of old issues, or there's this thing called Marvel Universe that has a history of everything Marvel in it. And board games. We learned our X-Men for the board game.
There was no internet. Let me repeat.
Right.
There was no internet.
Those board games were really detailed. Like I had one that had the little cards. You learned everything from them.
No Google. But so yeah, we learned we learned X-Men really fast as we were writing the first season. And as I understand it, you have to ask Lenor, but I bet half the cast was learning them too.
Did you pick the cast, or like as in the characters?
We had a vote. This is how primitive it was. They were all up in Toronto, which is like a great place to get.
I'm sorry, you're talking about
the cast.
The cast of characters. Like,
the cast of characters. Yes, we had a say in it, and everybody had Marvel said, well, we're pushing Gambit's new, and Jubilee is. They've had a problem with a Kitty Pryde.
Right, the Pride of the X-Men cartoon.
It didn't work, so we did. If we want to have a teenager, well, Jubilee's our hot one right now. So they picked 2 or 3, and obviously Wolverine and Professor X and Scott and Jean are kind of a given. But that was it. And beyond that, they pushed. I say Gambit was this new person, so that was the only one that was kind of unusual. And as we were writing, we discovered that we loved Beast so much. We put Beast in jail in the first episode.
Right, the whole season,
He was going to be a background character.
Civil disobedience.
And he was going to be in 2 episodes, but it was so much fun writing for him. And George's voice was so cool.
George Booza, voice for
that Beast. We just kept on writing him and kept on writing him. And by the end of the first season, he was a core member also. Morph was written on purpose to kill.
Right, which is audacious.
Yes.
But I just, jumping in here real quick, February 1992, you get the call. Typically, and it was going to premiere September 92, animation takes a long lead time.
These are all hand-drawn, every cell.
Batman, which was going to premiere at the same time, already had a year in development before you got the call to go in for that.
So we got 7 months, they got 19 months.
And then,
not that we were bitter.
Right.
But I'm also suggesting that the casting was so kind of down to the wire in terms of getting this thing done and getting it on the air. And Lenore, you were up in Toronto minding your own business.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You must have heard. Lenore, how did this come onto your radar? When did you first? Were you an X-Men fan?
No, I didn't know who the X-Men were. I did not know. I was an actor who started off in theater and doing musical theater. I played Marilyn Monroe in a rock opera on the Life of Marilyn. God. Yeah, so that was kind of like my first main claim to fame. And then I was doing film and television. I'd only ever done one animation series before this. And I heard my agent said that they were having auditions for a new show, some kind of cartoon show, and that they were looking for a deep, sexy, husky voice with a Southern accent. And she said, it's you. So I skipped the first audition. I have to say, I did not go. I was a bit of a bad girl back then. And, I don't know. I thought, animation, who kind of cares? I was more into like the more serious stuff. Right. But by the time they had the callbacks, they still had not found the voice that they were looking for Rogue. They'd found the other ones, and they were bringing people back for second, for the final callbacks. But they hadn't found one for Rogue, and my agent said, "It's because it's you. They haven't found it because it's you. Get your ass over there." So I did go, and I looked at the drawing, and she was this sassy character with well, kind of sort of similar hair in some ways.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, and I'm just an attitude. And I played a lot of Southern characters already anyway. And I just went, oh yeah, I can do this. And I went in the booth and I just said, you know, my daddy liked to kill himself when he found out I was a mutant. And, you know, the rest is history, right?
I have always wanted to ask, is it a bit of Dolly Parton? Is there Dolly Parton in there?
I didn't try to do Dolly Parton. I did not. I wasn't even thinking of Dolly Parton.
Yeah.
But I mean, I am a little bit like that, a little bit country, a little bit rock and roll. You know, I mean.
Lenore told me right before we started recording that she has an album in which she sings 9 to 5. Can you imagine? There's a recording of the voice of Rogue singing 9 to 5 somewhere. I need to hear that. That is amazing to me.
I think you'll like it. I do. I think you'll like it. I will send you a copy. You get me your address.
Oh, please. I cannot
I'll send
wait.
you a copy. Yeah.
How did you think about the character? Like when you were developing her? Yeah.
She's me. She's like me. I have her within me. As a young woman, I was searching for myself all around the world, trying to figure out where I fit in, feeling a little bit different and kind of wondering what it's all about. And I always had a kind of deep sadness and a bit of a loner. Although I can turn on the charm and be the life of the party. But so to be honest, I just tapped into who I really am, and that's what came out.
Yeah, and when we were writing her, we thought of her as obviously strong and independent, and takes no crap from anybody, but as the saddest, loneliest of X-Men of the whole group.
And if she had traded powers or could have traded powers with Wolverine, they would both be perfectly happy because he could live in the woods and not touch anyone, and she could not do the claws. But so in a way, the things that made them who they were in a very human way. The things that created who they were as characters, that humanized them. Yeah, in spite of the mutancy or because of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because after we finished X-Men, well, we did that for five years, I believe. And then some of the same team did another show called The Avengers. And so I played Tigra.
That's right.
So I got to have the claws.
There you go, perfect.
And a little bit more rage too, right?
A little bit more rage, yeah.
So
wow, Hawkeye, I wanted a real man. Something like that.
So I
always wanted a real man.
I'm sure all three of you have heard this a million times, but when did you start realizing what a queer fan base you had with the X-Men animated series? When did that start being oh, we have a lot of queer fans?
Well,
Comic-Cons.
And I'm going to say Comic-Cons because we, the two of us, and I'm a writer on X-Men animated series, just to clarify here, we didn't really get the chance to go to too many Comic-Cons because we're not voice talent. We can't.
Right.
Yeah.
Kids don't get how much work you do.
Right, yeah.
And it wasn't such a big deal 30 years ago.
No.
I mean, what would happen would be we would write for something for X-Men for 4 or 5 months, get the show done, and then go on to the next show. And go on the next show. We'd be 3 or 4 months into the next show before the first episode that we wrote even aired. And
it's pre-internet. We weren't working in a major studio office. We were in our home offices. We didn't hear anything from them like what they may have been receiving mail-wise.
So we really didn't interact with the fans. Julia had this wonderful, when we realized X-Men was a big deal, because we've worked on dozens, literally 40-some.
I've seen your resume. It's
like
Ninja Turtles, Transformers, Avengers, Gargoyles, Darkwing Duck, G.I. Joe, you literally built my childhood from scratch.
It turned out good.
But we realized X-Men was a really big deal, Julia did, when she went in one day to the Fox offices and asked a lady that was involved in marketing the Fox morning, the kids show.
Like the 3rd or 4th year the show was on. And I said, are you getting any kind of feedback? Because no one was telling us.
Fans never talked to us. There wasn't an internet. Nobody, we just were working in our homes.
So here in the U.S., the U.S. Postal Service there are sort of milky colored plastic boxes
Yeah.
that they put a lot of,
A
that's
couple hundred pieces of mail and a couple hundred pieces of mail,
And so
you
Charlotte-
stack them.
Charlotte Fullerton there at the office at the time said, well, let me show you. So go out to the office, this hallway there, and there's a box. And there's another box that's stacked all the way up to the ceiling. And it's stacked all the way down the hall. And it's stacked all the way back, all these boxes. And she goes, every one of these is a kid writing for X-Men.
Oh my god.
I'm gonna cry.
I know.
Oh, nice.
And they never told any of us.
They never
even
told
told
us.
the actors.
Oh no.
We didn't know either. And it wasn't
No,
until-
nobody knew.
Yeah, we understood that the ratings were good because that was kind of that wasn't an open secret. That was just the currency of Hollywood.
Right.
Like Saturday morning ratings are really strong. X-Men, Batman, Spider-Man, the ratings were through the roof,
Yeah.
which was great. But again, no one was calling us up saying, hey, yay,
Right.
job.
And we weren't getting raises or anything.
Well, you thought it was one and done, right? You thought the season one would
Oh.
be it, right?
Absolutely. In fact, we all hired out to another show.
Mhm.
It was July and August when we and the artists were done, the writers and the artists were done, and we hired out to another show, Extra Squad, over at Universal, and we worked on it for about 3 months because none of our contracts had an extension on it. They
Because no one thought it would hit.
just thought it'd be gone.
Margaret Flesh had confidence that she could get one season out of it, but she
Yeah.
couldn't get anyone to believe it would go further than that.
Then suddenly, in January, it's this huge hit. And they frantically are calling us all back. Artists, can you come back and keep drawing? Writers, can you come back?
And you couldn't renegotiate?
Okay, here's my horror story.
Yeah, here's the dark side of Hollywood. You think me like Friends, like, yes, I'd like 10 times
Right,
more
yeah.
piece, or you don't get your hit team.
Right.
So
It doesn't work that way in animation.
as a writer on the series, going into the second season, the fella in charge of a certain chunk of the money, and those are always the folks in charge, whoever in charge of the money.
Right.
Where the salary for a script was XYZ. Okay, great. So maybe we'll get like XYZ and a few dollars more. And he goes, no, the script fee is now $500 less. Wait, you're going to pay us $500 less?
What?
Got a line out the door of people who want to write for this show.
Oh, of course.
Want to write for this show? $500
Yeah.
less.
Well, what about you,
Really?
Lenore? Are you not making like $1 million an episode
No.
in season 2?
No. They did a buyout with us the first year, and we basically just made like kind of scale
Uh-huh.
for animation, which is still, it's good, but it's not
Right.
great when you're an actor. Like when you do
Right.
movies and television, you make more money, but it never really changed. We signed these contracts and we did it, and we don't even get residuals.
We don't get residuals either.
Oh,
You
no.
could play 1,000,000 times,
Yeah.
not a penny.
Yeah.
Although
We get the love.
Yeah.
We
Right, yes.
Yeah.
Lenore, were you getting a lot of queer fans coming up to you?
At
Because
the
Rogue is such a
Comic
queer
Cons.
icon.
She is, yeah.
Yes. Well, at the Comic Cons, yes. But again, I didn't start going to Comic Cons till last year.
Oh, really?
No.
How about you guys?
We started 2.5, 3 years ago when our book came out. Because we did,
Yeah.
before then it was like, oh, you guys did the writing? Okay,
Oh.
that's interesting. You're not William Shatner. Okay, next. But so we got the book that we'll hold up.
Shamelessly.
Please.
Shameless plug department here.
Previously on
on
X-Men,
Anyway, so,
making of the animated series.
right, and we
It's
interviewed,
good. It's really good.
we interviewed Lenore, and a dozen other cast members, and all the artists and everybody. So we had this living history of the show, and that gave us kind of a basis for panels. And so we'd start out with writers and artists, and then we'd say, well, there's this amazing cast in Toronto. I said, yeah, but that's, we have to fly him down.
Yeah.
And so gradually it worked out that the cast started coming down, and it became more of a thing, and there'd be 6 or 7 of us going to a con. It's still not as big as it should be.
And I kind of hold that up, that X-Men animated series itself was like the child of a bad divorce, because once Fox Kids kind of no longer was happening, and once Marvel was just going through all kinds
Going
of
bankrupt.
selling off rights here and there.
Right.
It really wasn't until the last 2 years that you could really find a source for X-Men, and now I'm saying Disney Plus, first time in 20 years, it's been available somewhere consistently. There was no, like, Batman's got Warner Brothers, and Star Trek has Paramount, and good old X-Men the animated series didn't really have anybody.
And so as far as the people that come up to us, because Lenore will say the same thing, that thousands of the fans come up over the course of most of them have some sort of story about feeling so different from the world around them, and a certain percentage of that are queer folks. A certain percentage of that are just outcasts, or people that didn't fit in racially in their communities, whatever it is. And some of them just feeling a little out of place. Some of them feeling desperate. Going through adolescence and not feeling like they fit in anywhere. And the testimonials that we got dozens of people writing us before the book saying, you don't understand. I wouldn't be alive if I didn't stop myself, from jumping one day because I wanted to see what the X-Men were going to do on Saturday.
Yeah.
It stops in the tracks.
Yeah. And it's so real. It's so and
to have been a part of anything like that had any kind of impact, is so astonishing and so profoundly gratifying.
And it's not that the three of us brought something so unique to television that this is. I think it's that there is something built into the idea of X-Men that was in the books when some of the books were weaker, some were stronger. It's there in the books to be mined, and just this sense of difference and exceptionability in both good and bad that make the whole idea of mutancy, that core thing just grabs people in their heart. And that's why we pushed it more in the writing. If you look at the books back that we had to look through the 60s through the early 90s, there's an awful lot of kind of like live wrestling issues where no, I'm stronger. No, I'm stronger. No, we'll see who's stronger, and we'll fight for 20 pages and somebody wins. And there is this sense of not fitting in. And so we tended to minimize the live wrestling part of it and maximize the sense of their humanity and make the characters more, well, what would you do if you were a 29-year-old person living at the X Mansion and had a life to live, versus, oh man, you've got cool superpower. To us, the fighting was like a gunfight in a Western. You have to have it. Right. But the stories were about the characters.
Honestly, that's what makes the best. Anthony and I talk about this a lot when we're talking about anything nerdy and genre. Like, that's kind of what makes the best genre TV or movies, is when you know that, like, okay, we do have to have the action scene or the fight scene, but we're going to make it more about the characters, and the action scene will happen, but that's not the plot, isn't the fight. And I think that's
although it's fun though to do as a voice actor.
What are those like? Right? What are those like? Sounds
all that. Or,
you enjoy it? Because I hear some voice actors do not like the grunting part of the job.
Some people don't, but I'll tell you what, like, you have to use your imagination, because you're not actually doing anything physically. You're at a microphone.
Yeah.
And you've got, so they're talking you through it. And so, for instance, a scene might be, okay, Rogue, so you're flying through the air, right? You're flying through the air, and then this great big huge giant guy, you go and hit him with your fist, okay? Like a sentinel or something. You hit him, but then a storm comes along, and there's like, she sends a storm, and then the next thing you know, you're going in a funnel, you're going in this funnel, you're going around and around in this funnel in the sky, right? And then you're falling, and then you're punching your way through it, and then you're kicking somebody, and then you're picking up a building. You're picking up a whole building, because of course she's the strongest woman in the universe. Now you're picking up a building and like moving it. It's like that. Okay, so ready? And action.
Were you recording with the other cast members? Are you all in a booth together when you were recording?
We were, yeah.
Was that a lot of fun?
Oh yeah. It was like a radio drama.
We actually just talked about, we recorded our episode, we did the discussion on the Dark Phoenix saga arc, and Lenore, there is a lot of, I was like, there's a lot of good screaming in this. I wonder how they like, did you guys have like record different screams and just like, okay, use one of the screams, or would it be like, this is the
I
scene?
think I had to do it every time.
Yeah.
I did it every time. Yeah.
That was yeah, go ahead, bro.
I was gonna say my best one, the best one was when get out of my mind, you know, when she's in her head, Captain Marvel, Ms. Marvel, and then I'm trying to get rid of her out of my head, and I go punching up through all the different layers of that building. I don't know if I leave a hole, and they're all coming out and they're looking at the hole, but there's a big scream there, and it's a really long one.
Is that one of your favorites to do, the Captain Marvel episode?
What's that?
Do you have like favorite episodes that you think about a lot that you got to do?
Well, of course, A Rogue's Tale.
Yeah.
Because you get to hear her backstory.
Yeah.
I think we all looked forward to when we got a script that was about us.
Yeah, of course.
Like most actors.
I didn't realize too, you're talking about all the grunts and screams, is something I think it's a personal weakness. In previous shows that I'd worked on earlier in my career, we couldn't always rely on the voice directors. In live action movie script writing, you don't write in the grunts and the screams and the yells and the whoas. You just, somebody gets knocked over and you just assume the actor's going to say it. But so our scripts are like 6 or 7 pages longer, and I swear 3 of those pages were impact grunt, acceleration scream. I put that in dialogue for every time somebody even bumped into each other, to make sure, because they were in Toronto, to make sure that the voice director wouldn't just say, oh, well, they'll put that in post-production. Right. Never relied on that, because these things have really tight budgets and schedules. And lots of times stuff like that gets left out. So I think I overcompensated, and so they had to scream more.
Oh no. Some of those Rogue screams are iconic. They really are.
Thank you.
I say this all the time. Like when I would play with my X-Men action figures, I would always like try to recreate like Rogue or Storm's voice with the figures and like recreate the like plots that you guys like wrote for the show. Aww. And even now as an adult, like if I read the comics, those are still the voices. I still hear you, Lenore, when I hear we've had so many guests on this summer talking, so we've like pivoted to talking just X-Men, and almost everyone kind of agrees that like the voices in the cartoon are still the voices they hear for the comics.
That's good. Yeah.
Eric had a fun story. A fellow named Bob Harris.
Oh, Bob Harris, yeah.
The Marvel guy, and Marvel was in New York at the time. When I say Marvel, I mean the comic industry.
Marvel Comics, and they were small, I don't know, maybe 20 people in the office. They were small, going towards bankruptcy. And this guy.
They just sold, right? The toy company.
Yeah. And they, and the guy that was assigned to us was in charge. There were 3 X-Men titles at the time that were going, and he had like the 70-hour-a-week job overseeing all 3 X-Men titles. So he was their expert, named Bob Harris. Recently worked for DC for about 5 or 6 years, but the longest time was there at Marvel. And he came in, what few people know is that we had a round of casting that went very badly before we got Lenore and the cast that we loved. And I think because it went so badly, we again overcompensated and got this incredible cast to make up for it. But we'd send up these scripts, these serious scripts that you guys know now, that we all know and love. And the first time they went through with the first group of actors, they played it like Scooby-Doo. They played it.
Oh no!
But that's what.
But that's what they've done for 20 years.
Yeah.
And so that's what they're used to. It's the same voice directors. It's not like he wasn't capable. It's just we tried to tell him we wanted it serious, and it just didn't quite get through. So we're back here in LA, and we're getting the audio cassettes of the first recordings, and we're just at a fetal position because, oh God, the show's over. It's so bad. It's dead. It's gone. If this is what's going to sound like, we should just quit now. And
so Larry Houston
from here, Sydney Iwater, and then 2 folks from Marvel, Bob Harris and Joe Calamari,
Great name.
Yeah. So we
Yeah.
went to Toronto and sat with, and probably wore these guys out. Lenore's lucky she came at the end. But through dozens and dozens of characters asking for theater people like Lenore and like the
And
main,
like George Buza.
and like the people we got, people with
Cedric.
yeah, Cedric with gravitas,
Charisma, yeah.
and drama
Peter,
to their
yeah,
voice.
David Hamblin,
Yeah.
So Bob
all
Harris
those guys.
there. And again, this is before they had any kind of success with anything
Right.
without the X-Men. This is
Yeah.
just the comic book universe.
And Bob Harris is maybe he's 35. He's grown up with the characters. He knows the characters better than anyone on the planet because he's in charge of the 3 books. And he's there and he's listening to people like Cal Dodd, Lenore, voice these people that he's only heard internally for his entire life.
Uh-huh.
And he said he got chills. It was the most
I'm getting chills now.
surreal
Him
thing ever.
too.
You know, all
I
these.
hadn't heard that story
Oh,
before.
Yeah, and Bob said it shook him up watching you guys make them come to life.
Wow.
And obviously he was pleased with what he was hearing, but he just said it was a transformative experience that like none he'd ever had before.
That's so cool to hear because I mean, Anthony and I are of the age that it makes sense that like that was kind of our first experience of like hearing the X-Men, but to hear that someone who had been a fan for years prior, because that I mean it tracks, it really does. The voices are all so often with shows, often with shows like this, I feel like it's like a perfect storm of like really good actors and really good writers because I mean I'm sure you guys know like you can write for something that eventually it gets put out and you're like yeah, and like
We all try our hardest, but you never know. You never know. We all want to do our best
And it
work,
could be
but
drawn terribly, or could
Yeah.
the budget could get cut, and so it doesn't move right, or you know,
So many
they put the
variables.
wrong music with it, or just. And that was the amazing thing that we're so grateful for. All this stuff came together right for the show, in a way that it never had before or after for us. Even we worked at Disney, we worked at Universal, we worked at other places that had the budgets and had talented people, and even worked with some of these same people on other projects, and it didn't come together the way it did.
So it's the magic.
Alchemy.
It's the magic.
it's wonderful celebrating it now. The fact that there are people who are fans of it, and we're finding them. We're finding them as we're finding out that the show had the kind of resonance that it had. It's amazing. It really
How do
is.
you, I want to ask about, how do you synthesize all that material? Because there is so much and you were coming to it new and you have like a certain obligation to like honor the like classic stories. Like you guys do a here's the Dark Phoenix saga. It's like the best adaptation anyone has ever managed of the Dark Phoenix saga. But you're also doing like season 1 is almost entirely its own new X-Men story and its own cohesive, coherent, rigorously about civil rights story. And like, how do you balance that? Like, Julia, you adapted Days of Future Past, right? Like, what do you do when someone's like, well, it's your turn, you got to do Days of Future Past?
Oh, and by the way, you can't use Kitty Pryde. Oh, and do something else. It's like,
Or Rachel, like if you're going to use Rachel, you got to set all that up. Yeah.
It was interesting. Just again, the first season was that magic 13 episodes where you don't know if it's going to go beyond that. So the fact that you were kind of tasked from coming up with the stories that felt organic, and I think the highest compliment is people said, "Oh my God, you adapted everything so well." There's not that much direct adaptation
In the first season.
If you examine the episodes,
Almost
stuff
none.
gets plucked from different places, but you know, Days of Future Past being the exception. And it wasn't until, you know, because that's episodes 10 and 11, or 11 and 12.
Which is early to introduce that many like time travel concepts.
The fact that Marvel was willing to let us play in that sandbox. There was a lot of reticence about taking on their showcase stories, and that includes Phoenix and Dark Phoenix. That wasn't allowed until they felt X-Men the animated series had kind of earned its way into that arena.
Well, I think there are two things that let us do it, that let us not be overwhelmed by the idea of the legacy, because, you know, right, it was the #1 comic book in the country at the time. Luckily, as I say, we had writers that were enraptured fans, and they had real trouble because they would try to write a story and they put 800 characters and all their powers and all the relationships and have to jam everything in because they can't leave anything out. And so we didn't have any of that problem the Mark Edens and I kind of laid it out again. We didn't have the history of the X-Men. So we were just thinking, again, these are new characters to us to play with. It's like, okay, we get to use the characters out of Star Trek, or we get to use the characters out of Sherlock Holmes in a new series. That's our series. And the guy that gave us the liberty to not be scared was Bob Harris. He said, look, we've got 3 different series going. There have been 29 X-Men from 1963 to 1991 in different forms and different good guy, bad guy combinations. You can't, there is not a strict canon. You can't just say, this is what the X-Men is. There are different people that like different elements of this. So he told us, just pick what you like and just make sure it keeps the spirit and keeps within character of the characters, but keeps within the spirit of the books. And don't worry about keeping with a canon, because we're going in 3 directions as it is. And we've gone in different directions before this. You'll drive yourself crazy if you're trying to figure out what the one direction is for the X-Men.
One example is at one point in a later episode, and we were becoming fans of the books. We were learning as we go. It was really learning on the job. I had a question about how Storm would handle something, and I asked one of the other writers who knew everything canon, 800 characters. Okay, so how would Storm how would she approach this problem? She wouldn't. Well, it's okay, but she's going to be here and she's going to be having this happen. No, Storm wouldn't do that. I'm hearing you. I got to work this. Can you help me here? Storm won't do that. It's so.
What did you do? So what did you do?
I did it my way. Hey, it was you. It was you two. It was you and Storm. Whatever it takes. The one in Africa. Where you go and help her.
Oh, right.
Oh yeah. But there you go.
Wow.
How much of it? So the show, I like to think, helped form my baby gay brain to be the liberal that I am now. How much of your politics, did you guys often get in trouble for making One Man's Worth is pretty political? And
nothing.
Not
really?
But now let me point. Okay, again, there was no internet back then, so we were not constantly scrutinized.
We didn't have trolls beating us up.
Right. Yeah.
For being too woke too soon.
If you go back in our country's history, world history, the early 90s, the AIDS epidemic was just happening, and the country trying to grapple or not grapple with that.
Right.
That was happening. I mean, that was actually happening as we were writing the show.
And we just had the Rodney King trials and the LA riots. And
so bad stuff was going on, and so the idea that these characters were representative of people who were treated as outsiders, who felt like outsiders, there was a lot of that going on, in the zeitgeist, sadly enough. And fortunately, everyone at Fox Kids, from the top down, were advocates for this kind of storytelling. So
yeah, and we were just trying to make it as dramatic as possible. We weren't trying to inject liberal politics into it. It's like people ask us, it's half female, half male team. Did you consciously, was this an anti-sexism comment? No, we just picked the 8 characters we thought would be the most exciting to put together on a team in animation. And it happened, it was 4 women, 4 men.
To X-Men's credit.
Yeah, to X-Men's credit. To X-Men's credit, there were some to pick from.
Yeah.
It wasn't just 30 guys and a occasional token female. So I think it was unconscious, because the people I know that wrote for the show have a kind of a rainbow of political background, but they're humanistic writers. They're serious about the character dramas, and I tend to think that pulls you back towards the kind of human stories we're talking about. And if you want to call that liberal, it's liberal. And again, the setup with the X-Men about the sense of outsider, that is something that, in 2020 is so big, right, that it's part and parcel of their mutancy. So you couldn't get away from it.
I was not the only female writer who wrote for X-Men. And there were women at all.
Our boss, the president of
Fox Kids, was female. Larry Houston, producer director on the show, who put in all those brilliant Easter eggs that, you know, if you thought you saw something, you did, because Larry he was the first Black artist hired as a storyboard artist
in 1979.
1979. So
there were none in Hollywood at the time.
Oh, wow.
He broke through and got that.
So just the makeup of the crew that was making the X-Men was a bigger pool than what you hear nowadays. And, it's just,
you know, it's like somebody told me the first 25 years of The Simpsons, it was an all male.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't have girls in the writing staff because girls aren't funny.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, yeah.
Lenore, did you grow into?
So they made Bart a girl.
People, Bart's a middle-aged woman. What's the
Karma, man. Karma.
Lenore, did you grow into being a fan of the character as the project grew? Were you reading ahead in the comics, being like, I hope we get to do this one? And stuff?
They kept giving us the scripts as we went, really. We couldn't look too far ahead. But I mean, I loved all the characters, to be honest. Once you get into it, as the fans know, all of them have such unique qualities. And so I would look forward to every time we recorded one, to reading the story and then acting it out. I mean, what? And get paid for it. So it's kind of like a kid's dream come true. When I was a kid, I was an only child till I was 12. And I grew up till I was 8 in Australia. So I spent a lot of time like sort of playing imaginary games, like on my little tricycle. I remember I'd be on my tricycle and I'd be imagining all these people chasing you. And then, you get off and you talk to these imaginary people. And so in that sense, if I had told my little 6-year-old self that someday you'd be doing that for a living, I would have died and went to heaven, right? Because I mean, it's fun, and you get to see all your friends, and then get to act with them after you read the thing. It's like, oh my God, like let's go do it again. It's so much fun. Let's go do it again, right?
What about the romance? Because that Gambit stuff, some of that is, sometimes that chemistry, you can feel it. And like being in the room with Chris Potter is a good looking man too.
Well, we had a reunion just recently because we all went to, well, he didn't come to Texas, did he? He came to Louisiana with us, New Orleans. Yeah. So we had a reunion after 30 years.
Wow, we hadn't seen each other in 30 years.
No.
That's like
he's had a family, he's married, and he's got a family, and he's had a few different TV series, and I'm a parliamentarian.
That's right.
So we had a great old time getting caught up and wandering the streets of Nolans and going to restaurants.
Oh my gosh, of course you would have been in New Orleans. Gambit finally got to show Rogue New Orleans.
Yes. It was so much fun. And luckily we were there like February 1st and 2nd, something like that. So I think we just missed, the Mardi Gras, and to be honest, COVID-19.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So we were there when you could wander around maskless on the streets, but
right.
Wow. Yeah, no, I'll tell you, one of the highlights for last year was getting together with these guys, with Eric and Julia and with the cast, because we had not seen each other in 30 years. And we went to Texas, we went to New Braunfels. Where else did we go?
Chattanooga, Tennessee.
That was so much fun. I always wanted to go there.
Getting our feet wet with conventions, because again, we had never met Lenore because we were all in Los Angeles and she was up. That was our first.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Until very recently, you had never met.
Right. Yeah. And for the book, we introduced ourselves each for the first time for the book.
When you interviewed her.
In 2016, 17, when I was writing the book, I would call them up. And we do it over the phone. It was pre-Zoom. It was just And so we talked for an hour on the telephone.
PZ.
Yeah.
Like that.
And so yeah, because it was one of these things that TV animation is, again, the budgets are modest, the schedule's tight, and sometimes when we're down here and the recording in LA, we get to be part of the recording process, like when we were at Disney. But even then, oftentimes you're off writing the next show when they're recording the show and so you've got the voice director and maybe an executive producer but maybe not even executive. And you just find out later how it came out. And sometimes the writers can be helpful. Sometimes they can be a pain in the ass in the recording studio. But it's often not your call whether you're there or not. And obviously they're not going to fly us up to Toronto because we were recording episode 4. We're writing episode 7 and 8. So there's just no way to make it practical.
I was gonna say, and it was fun too because when we would come in the studio in Toronto, we would get together and like I said, we'd read it. Then we would read it out loud around the table. I could do a table read like you would in theater or in film, and then we would go record it. And then after we'd finished recording for the day, like most of us would go out to this little bar that was just outside of the studio.
Hang on, what's the bar's name? I need to go.
Oh my God, I can't remember. You'd have to ask Cal. I can't remember the name of it. But it was outside and it was in the sunshine. It was warm. I remember that. And we'd be sitting there, so Cyclops and me and Wolverine and Morph and Beast, Yeah, Rogue was usually with the guys. And he would, and we would like stay until it got dark, and then we'd take off. But it was fun, Yeah. And then I am going to tell a tale out of school. So Cal,
okay, good.
Cal loves this tale.
Cal Dodd Wolverine.
Cal Dodd Wolverine was at home one like Saturday or Sunday watching TV, and he was going to watch the baseball game, the Blue Jays, the Toronto Blue Jays at the Sky Dome. We're going to play. And meanwhile, in another scene, in another universe far away, here is Cyclops had asked Rogue in real life if she wanted to go to a baseball game, which I had never been to, like a professional baseball game before, and I'd never been to the Sky Dome. So I said, why not, sugar? And so the two of us went to this baseball game. And I have to say, at the time, I was in a relationship. But so I went to this baseball game, and I said, as we're sitting there in the stands and everybody's cheering and everything, I said, oh, wouldn't it be just our luck if the Jumbotron, which is this big TV thing, suddenly like zoomed in on us and beamed us out to the universe? And guess what? Right then, it did. It beamed us out. And there is Cal Dodd Wolverine at home watching and goes, oh my God, that's Cyclops and Rogue together.
Was there a kiss?
What?
Was there a kiss?
There might have been something, holding hands or something. But oh my God, we'll never live that one down.
Oh, I wonder if we can find the footage.
I know.
I don't know. Well, let's just say I'm single.
Cyclops and Rogue is there's like something there in the show. I don't know if you guys were writing to it or if Lenore was performing to it, but she really seems to admire him as like this stalwart gentleman. Like she really wants what he and Jean have.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's performance or writing or what.
Well, I feel like just interviewing you, Lenore, I feel like a lot of Rogue's personality is also like you coming through. It's like both. Like, because Rogue, I feel like, has really good chemistry with everyone because she's also a little flirty. Like, her energy is just flirty.
True.
But also...
Yes. That's true. She is. And I mean, you know, it's funny how they say people who play clowns are oftentimes very sad people. Yeah. And so sometimes people who are like very big and broad and lives of the party also have a very internal, still kind of somber life. Mm-hmm. And I've always been both, which is why I think I can relate to her and why I played Marilyn Monroe. You know, when I was 19, I got chosen to play Marilyn Monroe, who, again, is an epitome of that. Somebody who's very externally broad and, you know, beautiful and flirtatious, but then she's also very lonely and sad and driven and not very sure of herself. Yeah. And so it's great. I love to be able to play those extremes in one character, and those characters are hard to come by.
Would you play her again?
Which one?
Would you play Rogue again? Well,
of course. Of course. Oh. Absolutely. She's one of my favorite characters in ever.
And would you come back and do some more X-Men?
Well, yeah, we get asked a lot, and there've actually been 3 or 4 producers that have asked. I mean, nobody.
No. Don't get excited.
Nobody with any clout or any entry into Marvel or Disney or anything like that. There have been people that fans have been hoped for it to happen. We actually wrote all the cast and crew twice. If this happened, would you be up for it? Because these producers said, well, can you get the same people? And we said, of course we can, because A, it's a payday, and B, these people love being part of it. And so, yes, of course we can get these people.
Now, this was all pre-Disney Plus, the big Disney merger thing.
Right.
So let's put it out there in the universe. Hey,
people are watching these cartoons.
Yeah.
Disney Plus Marvel.
Yeah. How about do this? We'd love to do this. But just to keep the record straight, Disney Marvel has not made any overtures to us. They have their own huge staff of people that are thinking the next 5-year plan for everything X-Men, everything Marvel, and they probably have their own people, you know, that they're involved in this. And if it ends up involving some of us, that would be wonderful. But we have not. There's been misstatements in the press saying, "Oh, Disney's dying to get the whole cast together. They're dying to get." And we wish. It's our wishful thinking. It's fans' wishful thinking. It's not yet at all Disney and Marvel's wishful thinking.
But have you thought about the stories you'd do if you came back?
Yes.
Julia, do you have one you want to do? The one you were always like, we should have done this one and we didn't get to do this one.
That's just an interesting question right there. You know, what didn't we get to do that we'd like to, that we wish we could go and do? And that's one thing. And then that's one kind of question. The other one would be, if offered the opportunity today, what would you do? And to me, the big question is, do we play with the idea of going back to 1997 and continuing from there,
doing season 6,
right? Yeah,
or come up with some clever time travel way that you end up in contemporary society, or
maybe it's been 5 years. Yeah,
right.
Or come up with a way to be more contemporaneous, and that's a fun mental exercise, you know.
And the civil rights discourse has changed too, right? Like there's so many other things you could think about there too, and the politics.
Although in some ways it's come full circle though too, hasn't it?
That's true.
But at least,
you know.
Yeah, when you mentioned Rodney
we're still
King,
having some of the same struggles.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And even for women's rights, you know, I mean, the misogyny and sexism is still there. And as a member of Parliament in Canada, we are like threats and things like that. Harassment and threats are up about 30% for cabinet ministers. And the women in the caucus have been talking. I mean, we've had all kinds of awful things happening from men who just don't seem to want to have women in positions of power. And that's really sad. It's a really sad statement of affairs. But, you know, this is Canada. So you'd think we would be further ahead. And of course, a lot of people are, but it's still there. And a lot of people don't understand really what is misogyny. You know, they don't even realize that they're doing it half the time. And it's the same with racism. there's always a tipping point where people go, oh my God, that's terrible. But you'd think we'd be further ahead by now.
Right.
But yet here we're like, again, like I said, we're sort of coming full circle, and which is why I think the X-Men, it's a perfect time for the X-Men right now. And I think it would be smart of them to actually do a reboot of the show and put the X-Men in situations that are happening now.
Maybe
Because
Graydon
there's so many
Creed
of
is
them.
president.
Oh my gosh. Hey,
I mean,
We
maybe we
could,
could have a female president.
yeah, we
I
did.
got in trouble.
Rogue
I've told this on the
Lenore
podcast
Zann.
before, because you have a female president in that first episode.
No,
And
no.
I got in trouble as a kid for watching a cartoon where the president was a woman. So, yeah.
Oh, no.
So you were doing work right from the first scene. That cartoon was like pushing boundaries.
And I have aged over the last umpty years, and I realized someone pointed out, "Oh, are you the Madam President character?" Well, I am now.
We
Wasn't in the plan
projected.
30 years ago, but I'd be happy to be Madam President.
There's
we
worse
act-
things, yeah.
We actually had a clip of that ready to put it on in November 2016.
Yes.
but then
That night, we're going to put it on the internet, saying, "Look, we,
you did
Um,
it first.
we saw before Hillary won, that Hillary
we
was
were
going
all-
to win,
Uh,
and of
We
course,
project. Oh boy, it's not been
so
pleasant.
we jinxed it. It's our fault."
so
I
reunion
always-
episode, opening scene, Graydon Creed's president, and then where do we go from there? That sounds to me like it would work.
Oh man.
I always joke with Anthony because I'm also in America. I forget, Anthony, what were you talking about with the animated series? Because you were like, "Did you guys have?" And I was like, "What, free healthcare? No, we didn't." And then he
Well,
was
we
like,
have
"What
people like
station?"
Lenor keeping things straight for us. So
There you go. Yes, and free healthcare works, folks. It's
Yeah,
fantastic.
if
We're
you can
actually now
elect
talking
Rogue
about
to Parliament, I
pharmacare.
recommend it.
We're also talking about now universal pharmacare here on top of healthcare. So
Just
Yeah.
bring it in for Julia and Eric and I.
yeah,
Our nation
you have
is
to move
dealing
to
with
Canada.
a medical crisis. We are dealing with a medical emergency and have been doing it for several months now. And we're not all of us waving flags going, I think we really need to talk about universal health care in a constructive way, because the thing that stopped our economy, the thing that has dropped us in our tracks is a medical crisis. And we're not really having that conversation.
You would think that would bring the conversation, but
Yeah.
But yes, good old X-Men could certainly fix a few things.
Yeah.
Bernie was talking about it.
Yeah.
There you go. Rogue is a Bernie bro.
And AOC.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's funny, my mom and I were talking
I like
because
her.
we're Puerto Rican, and we always talk about how much my grandma would have loved AOC because she would have liked seeing like a young Puerto Rican woman who's like doing things and is very liberal and like all this. Like she always makes me very happy.
I'm a big fan. If AOC ever hears this, Rogue is a big fan of AOC, and I think she should run for president someday.
When she's old.
She's old enough.
There you go. That's an
Absolutely.
endorsement to have, right? Like
AOC,
she
yeah.
wrote
AOC.
AOC will retweet that, absolutely. But I mean, in a serious way, I grew up in a very conservative, very religious household, and in a lot of ways, this show was the first. Like, you guys helped raise me. Like, I learned, like,
Aw.
oh wait, the things I'm hearing about my life are not true. The way people are articulating reality is not the way it is, and maybe there is a way to imagine a community and a way to fight back. I was talking to Ian about that first scene where the X-Men are walking to the Sentinel facility, and you all have the conversation about like, well, why are we born different? And everyone has a different take on why they're born different. It's like, that was the first time I heard anything like that as a kid. And I'm so thankful to all of you for that.
Oh, hey, well, thank you for sharing that with us. That's huge. And if we could make anybody feel just a little more comfortable in their own life, or just not so alone, I mean, that's huge. That is
Yeah.
huge. Thank you for that.
I don't know, Beast. I don't know, Beast. You know everything. What makes us like the way we are anyway?
Oh my
You got it.
Right? That's from that show.
You know a lot of the lines.
I know,
Like,
I'm impressed.
in
They
there.
come back to me.
do you remember the rocking chair line?
Oh, come on.
You look about as nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs.
That is my favorite Rogue line.
I love that one too.
When we were getting ready to talk about the first 2 episodes of Night of the Sentinels, I actually looked that up. I didn't realize that is like a Southern thing.
Mark and Michael Edens are born and grew up in Tennessee. I met them at the University of Tennessee.
Where you went to college.
Yeah, we had 2 other writers from Tennessee. Julia's from Texas. We had a writer from Alabama. It's a very southern writing cast. So any of Rogue's southernism is absolutely from someone's great aunt. They were real.
Yeah, that's true. They were sincere. Yeah.
That reminds me, I remember I have a film that came out on the weekend, right, called Stage Mother, that is streaming right now, and I play a Texan in that one too.
Oh.
And it stars Jackie Weaver, Lucy Liu, Adrian Grenier, and Jackie Beat, who is a great drag queen.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, only in this day and age.
So
That's just
so
come out?
much fun. What's that?
That's just come out?
It just came out across North America last weekend.
Oh,
It's
okay.
August 21st. But you
Say
can
the name
stream
again?
It's called Stage Mother.
Stage Mother.
We will look
Yeah,
at it.
you'll love it. You got to watch it.
I'm watching that tonight.
It's just to give you a little tiny bit. It's about this little Texan woman who's a choir mistress in his Baptist church choir, and she finds out that her son, who they disowned because he came out, and they disowned him, and he moved away to San Francisco, and they haven't seen him in a long time. And she finds out that he's died, he's passed away, but he's left her something. And she has to go to San Francisco, and she goes to and she finds out it's a drag club.
Oh my God.
I love that.
He has
Stage
left
Mother.
her a drag club.
Literally
in San
watching that
Francisco.
tonight.
You gotta see it. Tell me how you like it.
Find the trailer. She's in it. I mean, it's just fun watching.
I'm in it.
I will make sure we promo
I
that.
sure am in it, sister. You better believe I'm in it.
And Julia and Eric, you have a new book coming out, is that right?
Yes, and it's
Look at that cover.
Cover art.
that's a cover out the front and the back.
Beautiful.
And it's, since the original book was done without Marvel and Disney's participation, the original book is a dense, like 200,000 words of lots of interviews, lots of history, lots of behind the scenes stories, but no color art, just some storyboard panels and some designs, but very little for people that love the look of the show in the first book.
We couldn't get the rights.
Because
Right,
this one, we got this call from Marvel, from a head guy at Marvel, wanting to talk to us. We thought, oh damn, we're gonna be in trouble for doing the first book without the permission. And said, no, we all love the book at our office, but we want, now that we have all the rights together, because they didn't have the rights together before. Now they got all the rights together, they wanted to do a book celebrating the look and the art. So in this one, we interviewed more people, production people, like production managers that had to put 800 elements together, the recording and all the sketches and all the storyboards and all the model sheets and all the color codes and everything. Send it over to Korea, have 20,000 hand-drawn cells done. You get the episode back. So production people and lots of artists we talked to, and we dug it. It was hard to find.
This is pre-computer.
Yeah,
So
it was all hand-drawn. 98% of the stuff's been thrown away.
Yeah.
So,
Keep your eyes
Monsters, vandals.
So we dug through like artists' storage facilities.
Larry Houston had 3.
And then luckily there was a
fine art gallery.
A fine art gallery that had a couple hundred cells, X-Men cells, because they had bought a bunch of them before Saban or Marvel was throwing them away.
Yeah.
And they still had a bunch of them, and as kind of in return for the PR for their gallery. So yeah, you can use any you want. So we did a lot. It was a lot of tracking down the most.
That's a lot of digging. Yeah.
Good art and art that illustrated stuff, that showed how the animation worked, that showed prop lists and changes and things that were drawn wrong, and just all kinds of cool stuff that shows how an animated show got made in 1992, which is much more labor intensive than it is now.
I would imagine, yeah.
Perfect.
What's
So
the,
interesting.
for people who are just listening to this and can't see the cover, what's the name of the new book?
It is X-Men, the art and making of the animated series. And you can find a link to it on Amazon right now. And it's also available through Abrams Publishing, which is the new house for us that's doing this.
When does it?
It's kind of like a big coffee table book.
It's going to be, it's a coffee table book.
When does it come out officially?
October 13th.
Okay, cool.
So coming up.
And we were
Just
gonna,
hoping all this is over by then.
yes, yeah, we were going to have a big panel. I'm going to have Rogue in Manhattan for the NYC Comic Con
Which we'd never
to launch the
attended.
book.
Yeah.
But of course, it's, although Rogue, they may want us for a couple onlines. So
Okay.
in October,
I'll be around.
I want to know how you're doing your film career and your political career and everything else. How are you doing it all? My God.
Rogue's
Well,
still kicking ass.
I do my film career on the weekends.
All right.
My
well,
day job is my constituents. My constituents are my family. They're my life. They're my everything. And you know, and then my creative talents are in my spare time.
I think
But-
Charles Xavier would be very proud if
I
that's the
agree.
kind of citizen that came out of Xavier's Institute.
and
Well,
as
I'll tell you, one of the things as a parliamentarian, it made me proud to be able to do when COVID hit, was to be able to say to my prime minister, to Justin Trudeau, I'm in his party and part of the government, was to say, please don't forget the artists and, you know, all of the performing artists and the artists who now cannot work. And in Canada, they don't get unemployment insurance.
Mm-hmm.
So they were not able to get unemployment insurance, but yet they're out of work because you can't put on shows or anything like that. So we created a fund called the SERB, where people that were self-employed and artists and people like that, the gig economy, got $2,000 a month.
Yep.
$2,000 a month to keep them going throughout this whole time, and it's still going now. We're transitioning into something else, but I mean, it saved lives.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I every drag queen I know is still able to at least keep it going because of
Julia,
Serb, so.
Eric, how do we
Good.
get something like this over here, right? Like, you all are
Yeah,
rubbing
AOC.
There you go.
I'm still on furlough from my job that I've been on furlough. Well, actually, I just got laid off, but I've been on furlough for like months, and America they didn't vote on the unemployment bill before they like went on their recess.
We went on a 3-day
Really?
holiday.
Yeah, no,
Boy.
So what are you doing?
So it's just like whatever it was like 30% of what I was earning is now like that's it, and like
That's so hard.
then they all just went on that recess, right, guys? And it was like that's
Oh.
it. You're not. like,
That's so
Post
difficult.
office running. We just want the post office to keep going.
Yes.
Regular
Yes.
Stuff we shouldn't be dealing with, but yeah.
Well, this is why you need to have those social benefits for the people. You know, like if you don't have people looked after, then you're not going to have an economy anyway.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they go hand in hand, and that's why you know, it's so important to have those benefits for people, to look after people.
Yeah. Well, this has been
My heart goes out to all of you, really. It does. I'm thinking of all my American friends there, and the pandemic is raging, and please, you know, stay home and look after yourselves, wear masks when you're out, wash your hands all the time. Don't party with a bunch of people right now. It's not a good time to be partying. Play with all those imaginary friends and watch lots of X-Men. And, you know,
Rogue is kind of the queen of social distancing.
she is. I'm the champion, man. Champ. I have the T-shirt.
Oh, right. I did see an artist made that, didn't he? There was an artist.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bought one. I bought a hoodie and a T-shirt.
Love it.
Ask.
Oh, he was so excited. I took a picture of it, did a little video, and he was like, "Oh my god!" Stop.
I think
Public, he's really good. Art of Lucas. He's got some fun.
Yes, Art of Lucas. That's right.
Yeah, I don't think we can stress enough to the three of you what, like, to especially like queer folks of our age, like what you all mean to us. Like, I can't imagine as an artist having like the Rogue take a picture with art. That's like, but I know that I know you have a busy schedule, Lenore. So we're gonna close up here. Thank you all for listening. Lenore, promo, whatever. Tell everyone where they can find you online and everything.
Well, just on Twitter basically is my main one, at Zann Lenor. So just hit me up, and I'm in and out of Twitter, but I oftentimes will reply or retweet or send a kiss or say hey sugar or something. I am actually going to do a birthday greeting for somebody and a marriage proposal. Somebody's asked me to help them do a marriage proposal. I'm going to be doing that pretty soon too, and you'll see that on social media.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's kind of cool, right? I don't want to say who it is because I don't want to give it away. But and the other thing is, do watch Stage Mother. You can stream it on YouTube and all of those streaming platforms. But you'll love it. This audience will really love it.
Cool.
And
watching it
we
tonight.
are all equal, right? We are. We're all in this together.
And Julia and Eric, where can everyone find you?
I'll pop this up.
Amazing. A little higher. There it is.
I'm on Twitter way too much because it's fun, but
it's my disease too. So it's at X-Men TAS, the animated series. X-Men TAS.
For the animated
Facebook
series.
and Instagram.
We're on Facebook. We're trying to figure out Instagram, and there you go.
And Twitter.
Twitter first.
Mostly Twitter. And please hit Amazon up just to look up.
Check up either book.
Previously on X-Men, and then
That one's so good, and I'm getting a new copy of the new one too. They're sending me one.
Yay!
Yay!
We weren't sure because we're just figuring.
Julia
this out.
gave him a list, and we just heard this week that people are getting notified.
Starting to get notified. So
Yep, they got in touch with me, and I'm gonna get it.
One would like to think that Rogue would get a copy.
Well, sure, why not?
I'm so jealous that you get to do that voice whenever you want.
I know.
Whenever I want. I just pull it right out of my sleeve. I don't know what to say.
But thank you all so much, and thank you all for
you.
listening. We'll see you all next time.
Nice
Bye.
See you again. Stay safe, y'all.
Please.